Welcome to the Transatlantic Sports Show. I'm your host, Anthony Wootton. Make sure you follow us on social media at TASS_UK. That's on Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and YouTube as well. If you are listening to this podcast, then please check us out on YouTube at TASS_UK. Or if you're watching on YouTube and you want to listen whilst you're on your run or doing your chores, then just search the Transatlantic Sports Show on your favorite podcast provider. I am at ARWootton on X for all your Twitter needs. Although if you're following us on at TASS_UK, you are ticking the box. Thank you so much for downloading, subscribing, and listening, watching the Transatlantic Sports Show. We made our comeback a few weeks ago, and the numbers keep on going up. So thank you so much for being with us throughout this period and throughout the off season as well, because we are going to bring you all the news that we can throughout the off season as we build up to the 2026 NFL season. And as you know, I am an accredited journalist, so we will get to some of the games across Europe and bring you all the news, training, whatever you want to call it, but we will have it covered, the NFL games, on this side of the pond. On today's show, it's a very special episode. We are talking about one of the teams that are heading over to Europe later this year, the New Orleans Saints. We are a week away from the NFL draft. They are picking at number 8. Where are they going to go? Who are they going to be playing in Paris? When is that Paris game likely to take place? Well, we have a very special guest, Ross Jackson. He is the guy with his finger on the pulse as far as the New Orleans Saints are concerned, and he is the host of the Locked On Saints podcast. I saw Ross out at the Super Bowl in San Francisco, had a great chat with him out there. He was over in London in 2022, that doink game, the 61-yard doink, sorry to remind you, Saints fans, against the Minnesota Vikings at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. He's a very busy man. We're very fortunate to get him on. So let's get him on, shall we? Let's hear him. This is Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints. Delighted to say that joining me now is Ross Jackson. He is the host of the Locked On Saints podcast. He's also a Saints beat writer covering the New Orleans Saints, as you would expect. Ross, great to have you back on the show, man. We caught up, didn't we, just a few weeks ago in San Francisco at the Super Bowl.
Yep. It was great to see you out there. Great to see you here as well. Looking forward to seeing you again, man. We're just world travelers together, aren't we?
Hey, Who Dat Nation, traveling the world, my man.
That's right.
All right. Let's start with Who Dat Nation, and let's pump it out, man, because Saints fans on this side of the Atlantic are delighted because they're coming back over to Europe later this year. They're going to Paris, the first ever NFL game in France, and I think it just goes hand in hand, right? You literally got the fleur-de-lis on the helmet of the Saints there, and what a great opportunity for Saints fans in Europe to see their team at a beautiful stadium, the Stade de France in Saint-Denis. We've had the owner, Gail Benson, over in the past couple of weeks. Tyler Shough was in Paris a couple of weeks ago with her as well. So real investment, isn't there, from the Saints in France?
Yeah, this was a big-time desire for New Orleans once the global marketing kind of idea came about for the NFL. I believe it started 22, 23, somewhere around there. And the Saints immediately went for France. They're the only team that holds that market allowance in France as well. And they've really taken this to heart. They've had the Paris Musketeers come here for games, practices, to kind of tour the city, see all of that. They've gone to Paris and to France as well to visit there and kind of establish some of the connection between the two cultures. There's been a lot of drive from the New Orleans Saints to make this happen. And then once it made it happen, they've done a lot of things to show that they're very much taking it seriously, much beyond just the game itself, which obviously is huge, right? First ever NFL game in Paris on the way. The Saints will get to be a part of that. However, beyond that, they're trying to make sure that they are engaging with the communities of the area, just like they engage with the communities of the area here in New Orleans.
And how is the connection between people in New Orleans and Louisiana with France? Is there a sense of pride there? What's the history give us a brief history lesson, I guess. If
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a French colony, right? Like everything that started here, and a lot of the traditions that we have here, a lot of the food that we have here comes from French influence, and so there's always been a big time sort of French presence in the city of New Orleans. I grew up here. Your two options in terms of learning language were learning Spanish or learning French. Like it's always been a big part of our community here, and I know that connection with community goes a lot longer or a lot further than just the language, but there's always been sort of a sense of Frenchness here in New Orleans in particular, and in Louisiana as a whole. You see French words coming in as you drive into the state of Louisiana with the big welcome sign, bienvenue, everything like that. So you see all of those things. And so now you kind of have this additional connection now that you're building around one of the things that New Orleanians and Louisiana sports fans are most excited about and most passionate about, and that's their favorite sports team, the New Orleans Saints. And now the opportunity to be able to go across the Atlantic like that and be able to create a connection with France, with Paris, with these sports fans that are across the pond, if you will. This creates a big time connective tissue between the two cities, the two states, the two areas as a whole, really these two countries, which is kind of the whole goal of trying to turn the NFL game, American football, into a worldwide sport. That's kind of the goal with all of this, and you can see now a bit of the passion starting to build for teams that are going to be playing in specific areas. And of course, the New Orleans Saints get their good fortune here with getting what they wanted with France.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. You know what? I've been fortunate enough to cover pretty much all of the NFL Germany games. I've been to the games in each of the cities that they visited, and there's a real hunger and appetite from the German fans out there. So it's going to be really interesting, I think, to see how the French fans engage NFL and American football. I know that there is an appetite out there, and L'Equipe, the big sports publication, they've got a hunger and an appetite just to be fed NFL sports news, because they know that there's an appetite from their clients and the readership out there. NBA, of course, is huge in France. So they do love their American sports. And we've all experienced here in London, Who Dat Nation. You've been over a few times as recently as 2022. But I just remember the game against the Dolphins would have been 2017, I think. Alvin Kamara's rookie season. And what a great game he had there. But Wembley Stadium was packed to the roof with Who Dat Nation. So you could just imagine how much and how well they're going to travel going to Paris. They're going to lap it up, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the hope. And I think that you're going to see a lot of people coming from different places around the area as well, different countries, different areas there. The travel is a little bit kind of conducive for that in the area. So I think you're going to see a lot of folks coming from outside of Paris, outside of France, to be able to come and take in the game. But I expect you'll see a pretty good turnout for all of this. I know the Paris Musketeers also play, their sort of that European League football there that is sort of the American football. So there's a little bit of an introduction to the sport already, but to bring sort of the grandest nature of the stage, if you will, to them, I think is good. And, here in New Orleans, we always talk about laissez le bon temps rouler, which is kind of our version of French. It's not the real version of French. It's this sort of like French, Cajun French that we do. But they're hoping that they'll let the good times roll over in Paris as well.
That's awesome, and what an iconic stadium, the Stade de France. You just think of the players who have graced it. Mbappe, you're going to see him, fans in America, up close and personal this year with the World Cup, just a few weeks away now. And of course, you go back to like the likes of Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, Emmanuel Petit, the France '98 World Cup. I mean, there's so much history connected to that stadium, which is a relatively young stadium. It was built for the '98 France World Cup, but so much history there. I think it's great that the New Orleans Saints are going to be heading there later this year. Have you had any inclination or given any inside gossip when that game might be and who the opposition could be?
Yeah, like the prevailing rumor is still October 25th up against the Cleveland Browns. That's still the prevailing rumor at the moment. Getting any type of confirmation from the NFL on these kinds of things is incredibly hard. They want to do it all on their own. They want to make the announcements and all these other things. And so it's incredibly hard nut to crack, if you will. But as of right now, that's still kind of our expectation. That's when my flights and hotels are booked. So if I have to move them, I'd like to know sooner than later. You know what I mean? But I had to get out ahead of the market a little bit there if I could.
A bit of inside goss from Ross Jackson there from Locked On Saints podcast. That's amazing. Hey, look, October 25th, just 2 days before my birthday. So,
hey, there you go.
Folks, if you're listening and we can get out there, if we can make it happen, Mr. Goodell, please, I'd love to be there. That is awesome. And maybe, I guess, I don't know. I haven't got any insight on when the NFL London games are. The schedule announcement is just a few weeks away. At time of recording, we're heading into mid-April. It'll be mid-May by the time we get the schedule announcement for the NFL. But I would assume that it would go from London to Paris and then maybe a bit of a break until the games in Munich and Madrid. But my goodness, the amount of games, Ross, it is a worldwide sport. I mean, we're so fortunate over here to be able to have the teams that come over and the games that are played. How do you feel about your sport of the NFL expanding as vastly and as far as Melbourne, Australia, from Melbourne up to Munich, and you got Mexico again this year?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think the idea of expanding this to make it available to people that want to be able to enjoy it is an important thing. I think it's challenging sometimes for the athletes and for the teams that have to go about this. The league makes money doing it. Clubs lose money doing it. So there's a little bit of a balance that has to be struck between all of that, just from like the logistics and the financial side of it all. But putting all of the sort of numbers and dollar figures and all that kind of stuff away or aside, I think that it's a great opportunity for fans across the world to be able to experience a game that they are fans of. I know people in London that stay up until, the wee hours of the morning to make sure that they're watching these games live as opposed to trying to catch up on them the next day and everything, and sort of be able to have it in their backyard, in their area, in their home state, in their home area or home city. It's an awesome opportunity to be able to kind of lean into that. And so I do think that it's a valiant effort by the NFL. I do think that it's one that they take seriously. I think there's other things the NFL has to do as a whole, just in terms of its own image, to clean up some of these things. If they really want to be a worldwide sport, they should probably take domestic violence a little bit more seriously. But outside of things like that, in terms of what it is that they're doing on the field, bringing the product to these other countries and to other people's backyards, I think is a really, really important piece. I think there's other image things the NFL's got to clean up, but I mean, in terms of getting the game there, I think they're doing a good job of that so far. And even more, expansive, we've seen now with Italy picking up a pair of teams, including the New Orleans Saints and the Cleveland Browns.
Very interesting indeed. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think a masterstroke from the NFL was when they introduced a few years ago now to the London games, the lunchtime kickoffs, the early kickoffs over here, because the first the games were kicked off at 6 o'clock our time, which is traditionally midday your time, Central Time, so it'd be your normal Sunday afternoon lunchtime kickoff. But then what they wanted to do was allow the UK fan base and now the European fan base to experience an NFL game at a time that you guys experience it at. And it's absolutely, it's wonderful. It's great. And, I've experienced it, like I said, across Germany and the London games, and the fans just lap it up. And it's a great atmosphere. Ross, we mentioned you and I were at the Super Bowl in San Francisco just a few weeks ago. When I was sat there in Levi's Stadium, looking around, it was obviously it's more than a festival of football, but you look around and the feeling, the razzmatazz, everything that is connected with the Super Bowl, it is like a mini Super Bowl at these events around the world. In Munich, in Frankfurt, in Berlin, in London, going to be in Paris, at the Bernabeu Stadium in Madrid, heading to Melbourne, down to Rio. That's precisely what the NFL is giving the fan bases around the world, is that little taste of the Super Bowl. And if you can't make it to the Super Bowl, but you can get to one of these games, honestly, I don't think that you're missing out. Okay, you're missing out on the big game, but you are getting the ultimate NFL experience.
I love that you say that, because I actually went to my first international game before I covered my first Super Bowl. So I was at the international game, the Saints and the Vikings in Paris, and then I was at the Chiefs and Eagles Super Bowl, which of course was here in New Orleans. And I remember going to the Super Bowl and saying, oh, this feels like the international game that I went to. And so I experienced them in reverse, and I kind of flipped the script on it, to where I was like, oh, this feels a lot like that. Like, these are people that are just excited to see football. They're excited to see something rare, which in the, you encapsulate the idea that the big game, the Super Bowl, happens once a year. And for a lot of folks, going to an NFL game across, overseas happens once a year in terms of the individual experience. And so it was something that I thought really stood out to me about how similar the vibes were. Halftime show, all these other things, like there's a little bit of more, there's a different kind of level of glitz and glam and whatever. But man, it is the energy, the charge, the atmosphere that the fans bring is very, very similar, because these are folks that are excited to see something that, they've either never gotten to see before, aren't sure they'll get to see again, or see at least very rarely.
Absolutely. And for all those fans in the UK moaning about we get 2 Jags games this year, just think about how fortunate you are. We mentioned there about you get 1 game a year, but some fans are going to be able to experience one team in back-to-back weeks, and even fans in the States might not get to see their team in back-to-back weeks. So
right.
Again, something very special and unique coming to London. But we're talking about the Saints. The Saints are heading to Paris, and as I mentioned, one of the figures who represented the franchise out in Paris alongside the owner was Tyler Shough, the quarterback, and he was drafted last year, introduced. It was about 9 games, I think he played towards the end of the season. How impressed were you, Ross, with what you saw from Mr. Shough? Because I think there were glimpses. He used his legs, and I think some of his decision-making at times as well. He gave, I think, Saints fans something to cling on to and to be optimistic about heading into 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, one of the things that I always point out about what Tyler did for a lot of Saints fans is that he changed the way that Saints fans have watched games. Over the course of the past 5 years and sort of this playoff-less, this drought, this playoff drought that they've been in, fans, see a 3rd and 5, they're going to the restroom. Fans see down 10 points, they're checking into the other games, or they're switching to red zone. The attention started to change quite a bit for Saints fans. And when Tyler Shough took over for those last 9 games, in which he went 5-4, turned a 1-7 team into a 5-4 team down the stretch, despite more injuries piling up over the course of the season, it changed that, and he changed that. 3 game-winning drives, 2 fourth-quarter comebacks, led the rookie class amongst quarterbacks in both of those categories, is a guy that ended up helping them close some deficits, helped to increase their third down efficiency, helped to completely change their red zone efficiency. They went from being like a high 30% team to a low 50+% team in the red zone with Tyler Shough at the helm. And so really just kind of changed the game for a lot of Saints fans that were watching, and help them kind of stay in games a lot later, help to keep fans engaged a lot later. And I think that's a big part of why there's so much hope and promise around Tyler Shough. He's got to avoid some of the pitfalls that come with a typical second-year slump, as we call it. But if he's able to avoid those, there's not really a lot of reasons not to be excited when it comes to what Tyler Shough has brought to this team so far.
He's got Chris Olave as well to throw to, which isn't a bad thing to have as a weapon as well. And with Kellen Moore as his head coach, it's a rookie season as a head coach for Kellen Moore. Were you impressed with him as well? Do you think that these two can work hand in hand moving forward for the franchise?
Yeah, their relationship is pretty fun to watch. They were recently brought in to do some commercials and things like that for some various products together and all, and you can kind of see a little bit of the chemistry that they have. They're kind of the reverse Sean Payton and Drew Brees that Saints fans got to know here in New Orleans, where Sean Payton was a little bit more of kind of like the funny, quirky, very serious but kind of petty person, while Drew Brees was kind of the more calm, even-keeled demeanor. You kind of flip those and you get Kellen Moore, Tyler Shough. Kellen Moore's a little bit more of the even-keeled demeanor, while Tyler Shough is a little bit more the kind of like fun-loving, kind of petty, did the beanie weenie walking off the field and like celebrating and all these other things. Like you can kind of see a bit more of that from him. And so those two really play off of one another really well. And then on the Kellen Moore side of things, I think he was exactly the right coach that the Saints needed at the time that they hired him. I was a little bit concerned that with sort of that quiet, kind of meek, almost perceived as meek or coy demeanor that he had, that maybe he wouldn't be able to lead a room, or that he would struggle a little bit in terms of when the power dynamics come into play, where he might want something different than what the front office might want. Is he going to be able to stand on, all 10 toes and say, no, this is where we want to go, and all these other things? And, going all the way back to the draft, you could see it right from the very beginning, landing Tyler Shough, building the offensive line, continuing to invest in the running back room. You could see all of the thumbprints, the fingerprints of Kellen Moore all over that 2025 draft class, which won the Inside the League Best Draft Award at this year's most recent scouting combine. And so I think a lot of the concerns that folks had around Kellen Moore became quickly eschewed once you saw the way that he was helping to bring this team together, his focus on unity and his commitment to chemistry building and team building from the inside out, kind of making sure that this team is focused on itself, helped them weather a storm. Like we said, they started 1-7, 1-8 on the season, and then ended up piling on wins towards the end, where a lot of teams might have just given up and tried to go after maybe a better draft position or something like that. This team did not do that, and a lot of that has to do with Kellen Moore.
Are you pleased with the Travis Etienne appointment as well? Well, signing, acquisition this offseason?
Yeah, I think that that's a great move by them. And I think that it's great for Travis, too. Obviously, Travis is from Jennings, Louisiana, which isn't too terribly far away from New Orleans. He's a son of Louisiana, as we like to say. And now he gets an opportunity to be able to come back home and do what he used to do on Madden when he used to create himself in the Madden video game and all that. And then now he gets to wear that New Orleans Saints jersey and be that player and all. And he's an explosive home run hitter type. He adds an explosive element to this run game that the Saints have lacked over the course of the past few years. And so the ability to be able to add that behind Tyler Shough, by the way, who we just talked about, take a little bit of pressure off of him, but then also be able to bolster a bit more of what it is that Kellen Moore does, who really likes to be able to have that run game on the offensive side. We saw that in Dallas and in Philadelphia in particular. I think Travis Etienne was an excellent pickup for them, along with the addition too of David Edwards on the offensive line. I think those two signings kind of go hand in hand with one another, of adding that new explosive element back to this offense.
With a name like Etienne as well, I think jersey sales will be interesting to see.
Yeah.
The jersey sale numbers in France for those Paris games, man, because that's certainly one to keep an eye on. Look, the New Orleans Saints were a week away from the NFL draft. There's no Cam Jordan as things stand, who's been an ever present, hasn't he, for the Saints for a long time. The Saints are picking number 8 in the first round. Are you expecting them to go edge rusher? I think it just seems logical, doesn't it, that that's where they're going to be looking at that stage in the draft?
Yeah, when you're drafting in sort of that top 10 area with the Saints selecting at number 8 overall, you want to lean into some of those game-changing premium positions. And the two easiest positions, heavy air quotes when I say easy, by the way, but the two easiest positions to potentially land at that area in this particular draft class would be either edge rusher or a wide receiver. And so I would expect that if one of those edge rushers falls, whether it's Ohio State's Arvell Reese, Miami's Reuben Bain Jr., who's had sort of this new issue pop up from a 2024 fatal car accident, which it seems that a lot of NFL teams are comfortable with, have known about, wasn't speeding, wasn't intoxicated, all these things. Feels like everybody's kind of on the same page about that across the league. We'll see how that actually plays out, but it doesn't sound like it's going to affect his draft stock. So I'd certainly put him in that conversation, as well as Texas Tech's David Bailey. If one of those three players is there at 8, it's hard to see the Saints passing when they have spent so much first-round capital over the course of their over the course of Mickey Loomis, the general manager's tenure so far. They have a tendency of spending in the trenches in the first round, building from the inside out. It's always been something they believed in. And so adding an edge rusher would make perfect sense if the right guy's left on the board. If not, then they'll have to start looking at some of those other premium positions, wide receiver and cornerback more specifically.
Not talking first round, but in the draft overall, is there a player that that's caught your eye that you just absolutely love and hope, beyond all hope, that the Saints manage to acquire this guy at some stage in the 2026 draft?
Yeah, there's kind of two guys that have really been super high on my list. Number one is the player that I think is the best player in the draft, Caleb Downs, but he's probably a first-round guy. So if we're going beyond the first round, I'll probably go Miami cornerback Keontae Scott. This is a guy that I think is tailor-made for Brandon Staley, defensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints defensive system. He plays what they call their star role, so he plays that cornerback position that plays on the inside, but might move outside sometimes, might play a little bit of safety, might come down and rush the passer, but also is looking to be utilized in coverage and provide some run support. He has a really expansive skill set, 3 interceptions in his college career. All 3 of them returned for touchdowns, so he can do something with the ball in his hands as well. And he's just been a really, really kind of disruptive presence. 5 sacks last year for that Miami Hurricanes national championship appearance run of a season. Really, really talented player that I think is just kind of tailor-made for what it is that the Saints do on the defensive side of the football.
It's been 5 years, Ross, since the Saints have made the playoffs. Is this the year that they're going to do it? Give us hope.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's certainly the hope going into this year. Mickey Loomis said that they're not just trying to win the NFC South, they're trying to dominate it for a long time. And so that is the goal right now going into this 2026 season. They feel like they have the quarterback now, although there's still patience, right? No one's going to start, turning coat at all on Tyler Shough should he, struggle a couple of games or anything like that. The organization's not going to all of a sudden turn on him. So they will continue to be patient with him, but they do have high expectations and they are excited about what he could potentially bring to the team. And so as long as you continue to invest in that by continuing to shore up the offensive line, providing more weapons over on the offensive side, and of course building up that defense, which was stellar towards the end of the year last year, especially after they got Chase Young, their star edge rusher, back. That is going to put them in position to be able to compete within the NFC South division. And that's all they need to focus on right now. If they can win the NFC South, they're in the playoffs. Said and done. Doesn't matter what the record is that wins that for you. As we have seen many times in the past, all that matters is winning the division. And this is a team that should be competitive there. They and the Panthers, I think, have gotten better. The Bucs and the Falcons have taken some steps back. So this is a perfect opportunity for them.
Yep. The Panthers are definitely, of course, the Panthers won the division, so they naturally are the team to catch and beat in the South. But I agree with you there. I think the Panthers have acquired some decent players and improved their roster this offseason. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be a fun watch. The NFC South in the 2026 season. Just finally, New Orleans fans, Ross, the Pelicans, they had Zion Williamson, but they failed to make the playoffs. We're speaking at a time where the play-in tournament is about to start, and then the playoffs start proper at the weekend. What's happened? New Orleans sports, man. Come on, Saints.
Yeah, it's a rough one, man. It's been a rough one here for a little while, and so they're really pulling for the Saints to be the team to turn things around. Obviously, they're the big ticket item here in the city, and so if they're the ones that are able to turn it around as the Pelicans mull all their big decisions, my guy Jake Madison over at Locked On Pelicans has his job cut out for him going into this offseason, and so we'll see how they end up handling their business. But a lot of hope right now around where the Saints go, and it continues with this upcoming NFL draft.
Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast. Where can fans or viewers, listeners check you out for your work? Because you are the guy to keep an eye on throughout the NFL draft and, of course, for all Saints news.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. Yeah, you can find the Locked On Saints podcast free and available wherever you get podcasts, and on YouTube, just search Locked On Saints. You can find as well all the written work over at LouisianaSports.net. Multiple articles a day over there, keeping you up to date with everything going on with the Saints. You can find it all in one place on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA, NOLA.
Folks, there is no one who works harder than Ross Jackson. I can assure you of that. I saw him. He was a busy guy when the Saints were over in London at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in 2022. I saw him firsthand in San Francisco. He's going to be out in Paris, so he is the guy for you to follow for all your Saints needs. Ross, thank you so much. Look, we'll get you back on just before Paris, then hopefully we can do a little recording whilst we're out in Paris together.
Oh, that would be lovely. I would love that. Yes, absolutely. 100%. I'm in anytime you need, feel free to hit me up. I'm glad to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me on.
I know a perfect coffee place. I've had no better cup of coffee than this cafe behind Notre Dame. I was going to say Notre Dame behind Notre Dame in the city. So we'll take you there for a croissant and a coffee, and it's on me, my man.
I love that. Thank you so much, man. Looking forward to that.
There goes. My thanks to Ross Jackson. I'll tell you what, if there's someone that you need to follow with their finger on the pulse for the New Orleans Saints, Ross is your man. Please check out the Locked On Saints podcast. The Locked On Podcast Network is absolutely awesome for your team. I am a 49ers fan, as you all know, and Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker, those two guys do a great job on the Locked On 49ers podcast. I get loads of information from those guys. And when I'm doing research as well for my presenting on BBC 5 Live, I check out the Locked On Podcast Network for the respective teams that I'll be covering that week, because I know that's where I can get all the information I need about those teams, the Locked On Podcast Network. So check out Ross Jackson at the Locked On Saints podcast. Ross Jackson's details are below. So if you're listening to the Transatlantic Sports Show right now, that is another reason for you to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because you'll get all the visuals on there. Thank you very much for downloading and subscribing to the Transatlantic Sports Show. Please tell your friends about us and get them to tell their friends, because the more people that engage with the program, it just brings more numbers, and those numbers we can sell to sponsors and take you behind the scenes at all these special events. And it just keeps us going as a podcast as well, the Transatlantic Sports Show. We're a week away from the NFL draft. I think the next episode you hear from us on the Transatlantic Sports Show will be reflecting on the 2026 NFL draft in Pittsburgh. So please hit like and subscribe, and follow us via your favorite podcast network. However you're listening to us, hit it now, subscribe. Giving you a moment, please do it. Thank you very much, and you'll get all the reaction that you need from the NFL draft. So until next time,